Signed and Funded, Episode 3. How much home can you actually afford? Hosted by Scott Alfano. Hey everybody, welcome back to Signed and Funded, the podcast where we combine the knowledge and efforts on buying and financing real estate, so you can stop guessing and start moving. I'm your host, Scott Alfano, realtor, loan officer, and someone who's been in the finance world for over 15 years. If this is your first time here, go back, catch episodes 1 and 2. We talked about how buying and financing actually work together, and then we got into your credit score and why it controls everything. Today's episode builds directly on both of those. One of the most common questions I get, whether I'm sitting across the table from a first-time buyer or someone who's done this before, is some version of how much can I afford? And the honest answer is that most people don't have an idea. And the scarier part, a lot of them think they do because they went on Zillow, they punched in their income, and they walked away with a number. And that number is almost always wrong. So today, we're going to fix that. We're going to talk about the math, the mindset, and the emotional side of affordability. Because buying a home isn't just a financial decision, it's a life decision, and you need to understand both sides of it. Let's get into it. All right, let's start here. Zillow says you can afford a $600,000 home. Should you buy a $600,000 home? Probably not, and here's why. Online affordability calculators are built for marketing. They're designed to get you excited, to get you clicking, and to get you calling an agent or a lender. They're not built to protect your financial life. They don't know what you spend on groceries, on your car payments, childcare, student loans, Netflix subscriptions, anything, going out to eat. It doesn't focus on any of that. They're working off of one number, your income. They're applying a broad, generous formula to make that number look as big as possible. And because the more optimistic that number, the more you engage with their platform. I'm not here to bash Zillow. It is a useful tool for a lot of things, but when it comes to what you can actually afford, you need to go deeper than an online calculator. The deeper you go, you start to realize this. Affordability is personal. What's comfortable for one family can be a financial disaster for another at the exact same income in the exact same home. The difference comes down to lifestyle, expenses, goals, and realistically, how much financial stress can you handle? So let's talk about how lenders actually look at this, and then I want to add a layer on top of that most people don't think about until it's already too late. Okay, this is where we get a little bit educational, but stick with me because this is the stuff that actually matters. When you apply for a mortgage, lenders are going to look at something called your debt-to-income ratio, or DTI. This is probably the single most important number in the mortgage approval process outside of your credit score. Here's how it works. DTI is a percentage. It compares your monthly debt obligations to your gross monthly income. That's your income before taxes. Let's make an example out of this. So let's say you make $8,000 a month before taxes, and every month you pay $400 on a car loan, $200 in student loans, and minimum payments on a couple of credit cards that comes out to, let's say, $150 a month. Between the car, the student loans, and the credit cards, that is $750 a month in existing debt. Now, you want to buy a house. Your estimated mortgage payment, including the principal, the interest, the property taxes, and the insurance, is $2,000 a month. So your total monthly debt obligations will be that initial $750 that we talked about plus $2,000. That is $2,750. Divide that by your gross income of $8,000 and you get 34.4%. That's your DTI. Most conventional loans want your DTI at or below 43%. Some loan programs will go higher. Some lenders draw the line lower. FHA loans can sometimes go up to 50% in certain situations. But as a general rule, 43% is that golden ceiling number that you're working with. Now here's what that means in plain English. The more debt you carry, the less home you can buy. It's that simple. Your car payment, your student loans, your credit card minimums, they all eat into the mortgage that you can qualify for. This is why I always tell people, before you start shopping for homes, look at your debt load. If you can knock out that car loan or pay down a credit card before you apply, that can meaningfully change what you qualify for. And we did talk about this a little bit last week in episode 2 when I explained how to calculate your FICO score. That same buyer, $8,000 a month income, they pay off the car loan before applying, their non-housing debt drops from $750 a month to $350 a month. Now their DTI on that same $2,000 mortgage is 29.4%. That's a much stronger file, and in some cases it opens the door to better rates and better loan programs. DTI is math, and the math is something that you can work with. Okay, now I want to shift gears because this is the part most financial podcasts skip, and it's actually the most important part. Qualifying for a loan and being comfortable with a payment are two completely different things. The bank will tell you what you can borrow. Nobody's going to tell you what you should borrow. That part's on you. And here's the trap people fall into, especially first-time buyers. They get pre-approved for $550,000, let's say, and they think, okay, that's my budget. But the payment on $550,000 at today's rates, it might be $3,800 a month, or it might be $4,000 a month by the time you factor in taxes and insurance. And if you've been renting for $2,200 a month, it's a dramatic shift in your monthly cash flow. Can you qualify? Yes. Can you actually live that life comfortably? That is a question for you to answer. I always ask my clients this. If you lost your job tomorrow, how long can you make that payment? Not to scare them, but to make them think. Because life happens, income dips, unexpected expenses hit, and the house payment doesn't care. The concept that you want to internalize is this. Just because the bank says yes, doesn't mean you have to say yes. A lot of people buy at the top of what they qualify for, and then they find out really fast what it feels like to be house poor. That is the term for it. You own a beautiful home, and you can't afford to do anything else. You can't save, you can't travel, you can't handle emergencies. You are just surviving, waiting for the next paycheck to cover that mortgage. That's not a way to build wealth. That is a trap wearing a nice outfit. This is my recommendation to you based on everything I've said here. Build your own affordability ceiling, not just the bank's. Take your monthly take-home, not gross, but your take-home. Target a mortgage payment that's no more than 28 to 30% of that number. That's probably your comfort zone and the number that still lets you live a life. I know for me, I literally do have to have money set aside for going to sporting events, going to concerts, hiring babysitters to go to those events with my wife, and those are things that a bank is not going to remind you of when they tell you how much home you can afford. Figure out what's important to you, whether it's a periodic monthly purchase, whether it's something that you splurge on once in a while, and try to build that into your own calculator. Because you don't want to buy a home and then realize that you can never go to a sporting event again, or realize that you can't take that biannual RV trip. All right, let's bring all of this together. When you're figuring out how much home you can actually afford, think in 3 layers. Layer 1 is what the lender sees. That's your DTI, income, debt, credit score, loan program. This determines what you can borrow and how you can borrow it. Layer 2 is your real monthly budget. Take your actual take-home pay. Subtract your real expenses. Groceries, gas, utilities, subscriptions, insurance, childcare, whatever your life actually costs. What's left is your realistic range for a housing payment. Layer 3 is your lifestyle goals. Do you like to travel? Do you want to save for retirement? Do you want to have a buffer for emergencies? Maybe put the kids in activities outside of school? All those things matter a lot, because a home payment that leaves no room for any of that isn't a good payment, no matter how beautiful that home actually is. And here is the piece that most people forget. Home ownership itself has costs beyond the mortgage. Property tax, homeowner's insurance, HOA fees if you go into an HOA neighborhood, maintenance on the home, repairs on the home. The rule of thumb is budget 1 to 2% of your home's value per year for maintenance alone. So on a $400,000 home, that's $4,000 to $8,000 a year. And that's real money that does need to be set aside somewhere in your plan. So when somebody asks me, how much home can I afford? My answer is never just a number. It's a conversation. Because the right number for you depends on your debt, your income, your take home, your lifestyle, and how you define financial security. The best home you can afford is the one where you can still sleep well at night, not the biggest number that the bank hands you. All right, everybody. As we've seen in previous episodes, this was just a small introduction into the topic of conversation, and today we were determining how much home you can actually afford. I think the biggest takeaway here is just to realize don't necessarily go after the biggest number that the bank lets you have. Figure out what's important to you in your life, where you need money outside of your mortgage payment. Make sure you budget that in before you start looking at homes in a price point. Figure out how much you're willing to put towards a housing payment every month, and then go get it. If today's episode was useful, the best thing you can do is hit subscribe, because next week we are going to tackle something that goes hand in hand with everything that we covered today. Pre-approval. What it actually is, what it actually isn't, and why you don't want to make an offer on a home without it. You can find Signed and Funded on Apple Podcasts and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Follow the show on Instagram at signedandfunded for quick tips between episodes. And if you have a question about your budget, your DTI, your pre-approval, or your real estate situation in general, please reach out. I'm a licensed agent here in Seattle, and I'm a loan officer across the country. I'm happy to help you figure out where you stand and what your next move can look like. Thank you for listening to Signed and Funded. Again, I'm Scott Alfano. New episodes drop every Friday, one topic at a time, so you always know exactly what you're getting. Until next time, go make a good move.